Happy Thursday, campers. Welcome to this week's edition of Campcast, the official weekly podcast of the Campfire Speaking Club. Don't forget, if you want to check us out on VK, you can always use promo code Campcast21, that's Campcast21, and you will get a free lesson when you buy your first packet. Today, my guest is a repeat guest. It's always a pleasure to have someone on the podcast a second time. So today, I am delighted to invite back Irina Lutsenko to come and have a chat with me. We talk about all of the stuff that you would expect us to, from Cambridge exams, tips and tricks, to some new courses that Ira's designed and is going to tell you all about on her channel. And some other stuff which you might not expect. Irina is she's very polite, very prim and proper kind of gal. So naturally, I spend a lot of time trying to make her feel as uncomfortable as possible, talking about sex and drugs and alcohol and all sorts of stuff. And we have quite a long conversation about swearing. So basically, I try for 40 minutes, more or less, to try and make Irina say fuck. So watch the entire show to see if she does. Thanks, then.
You are already recording.
Oh no, don't worry. This is just I just set the video to record automatically, and once we start, I'll cut the video from there. So I think we're all good. Okay.
Behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes. So we're doing right. Behind the scenes, the making of Campcast. It's not very complicated. I just I record, put it on YouTube, and that's about that. Very minimal editing, minimal effort from my end. Cheers. Anyway, I think we're good. So 3, 2, 1, and all of that stuff. Irina, what's going on? What's the story? How's life?
Life's good. I have a lot of writing projects. I've just taught 2 creative writing club sessions.
Yes, I'm going to ask you about all of that in just a second, because I can see you've got some pretty interesting stuff. I didn't even give you a very good introduction. Sorry. Let me start. Hang on. With my new epic microphone. Today, I'm joined by Irina motherfucking Lutsenko. There we go. How's that? I wanted to give you like a really gangster introduction.
A gangster.
Yeah. Have you ever been introduced like that before?
No, never.
Well, there we go. It's a first time for everything on the second season. Yeah, because I don't know. Because you're very prim and proper, aren't you?
I'm very serious, this kind of dry and boring.
Exactly. And I wanted to see your face to introduce you as a really fucking Lutsenko. But hey, you're epic enough that I think that it merits such a bombastic introduction with little hair on my microphone here.
Thank you.
So yeah, I mean, because I remember I got the impression that you're quite a serious prim and proper person when you put up a photo on the 1st of January of doing a goddamn, what was it, a 6-kilometer run.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. You're mental. You are mad. What were you doing?
I was running. That's something I do every year. I have this tradition by now. And, one student inspired me. He kind of encouraged me and supported me. And he said like, hey, let's run. And I said, okay. And then I'm a creature of habits. If I do something once, then I just can't stop. I do it repeatedly.
I don't understand how you could do it. That was at home, yeah? You're in Pskov, yeah?
In my hometown, yeah.
Yeah. Again, shout out to Pskov again. That's the second one this podcast. Yeah, I don't know. I can't imagine. Maybe me and you have different understandings of how to celebrate New Year, but every January 1st, I am just so hungover. I couldn't even walk, let alone run. Like, do you not indulge in a little bit of champagne?
I'm a teetotaler, no.
Oh, no way. No way. What, at just...
Are you surprised? I'm so prim and proper. It's only natural.
Yeah, I suppose. So you were just on the... did you not even have a little bit of children's champagne?
No, no,
Children's champagne and some kefir afterwards to get you completely wasted.
just water. No, no.
What's your logic for being a teetotaler? Have you just... Or it's never appealed to you, drinking alcohol, or you've never thought about it, or...
Well, I mean, I have drunk alcohol. I just, I never got the appeal, the positive results that people get. Why on earth would they do that? To be hungover, to waste a day, a morning.
Yeah, that's very true. Wasted mornings are the worst thing about it. Because it's definitely great as a social lubricant. It's great as a way to... stop. No, don't laugh. It's not a dirty word. Social lubricant's a perfectly respectable phrase. It doesn't mean anything about that, Irina. So it works great as like a a way of making the conversation go more swimmingly. But if you rely on alcohol more than you rely on your character, more than you rely on your your wit and your knowledge of things to talk about, then that's a problem. Yeah. So I suppose you must be a master of conversation, that you're just drinking juice when everyone else is getting wasted around the table.
Yes, it is overwhelmingly obvious that I'm a master of conversation. Yes.
Big time.
I can talk about, I can talk about exams. I can talk about serious stuff. Right.
Oh no, don't worry. There'll be serious stuff and there'll be unserious stuff on this podcast, as always. Well, I think we're off to a great start. Anyway, yes, don't worry. I'm very keen to talk to you about all of your new creative writing projects. Because you were just teaching one before we started taping, weren't you?
2. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. Not hungover. That's your secret. Well done.
Yeah.
So tell me about them. What's it all about?
Well, basically, I have this project I started maybe 3 years ago. Because I teach for exams a lot, and then I thought, well, it's a little bit boring to write these essays all the time. You write them for you don't know whom, you don't know why. It's just it's a prompt that you might not even like, the topic you might not even like. You have this criteria that you have to keep in mind. Then I thought, well, let's do something fun. Let's have fun writing. And then I just created this project from scratch, just let my imagination run wild. I looked for funny, crazy prompts. It took off. People responded. I discovered there is a lot of creativity in people that sometimes they don't know about. And then when they respond to my prompts, they do a great job at writing or imagining or inventing, metaphors, similes.
That's really nice. Yeah, and as I don't have to tell you, I mean, you're one of the trailblazers when it comes to writing prep. I mean, writing's certainly an undertaught and undervalued skill. So yeah, props to you for doing that. And okay, so when you say prompt, what sort of thing do you mean? Do you mean like you give them like a first line and then they write some creative piece, or do you give them just a general topic, or how does it work?
Oh, there are different kinds of prompts with different degrees of flexibility. For example, the prompt that I just gave to my one of my groups is, it's a common excuse a teacher might hear, like, a dog ate my homework. Mm-hmm. But the prompt is, in an ironic twist of fate, a dog really ate your homework. But when you give your teacher this excuse, the teacher does not believe you and tells you, well, come up with something better than that. So, right, and the task is, the prompt is like, write that story, invent that story, invent that excuse of why you didn't do your homework, because you can't use the real reason.
Very good. And so presumably most of the writing, if not all of the actual writing, happens not during the class. So that's like their homework, yeah? So what actually happens during the class? What's the format?
Oh, we work on different levels. Sometimes we work on a sentence level, and we explore different devices, stylistic devices like a metaphor, a simile, and we rewrite something short in class. And then I sometimes ask them to write something short as a note, an ad. So something very, very tiny, something that's manageable. And then something that's longer, that's what they do at home, that homework.
That's awesome. Sorry, can you hear my cat in the background?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, well, it's interesting to see that the microphone's working well, but yeah, if he keeps meowing, I'll let him in. Okay, I might have to go and let him in a second, or he's not going to let us record properly. So what sort of devices do you mean? You mean like metaphors and similes, other stuff like that?
With my newbies, yeah, metaphors and similes. Then with my reunion groups, I have a reunion group, which is people who have already graduated from the newbies group. So then we explore all these fancy, polysyndeton, asyndeton, chiasmus, litoti, or this. Yeah, I know the name. I'm not sure I can match the name to the device though immediately, but
yeah. And it's do you ever think about doing one of those for poetry? I know I keep banging my poetry drum, and if I want it, I should probably just make one myself. But like maybe like a project where you analyze poetry and you look at poetic devices like enjambement and caesura and end stopping and all of that stuff.
We do write poetry, by the way.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we're going to write poetry this season as well. Well, yeah, I think, well, I personally like poetry and I would be interested in this project. I think it's a good idea.
Okay, well, you know what, Ira, the time has come for our ultimate poetry writing marathon on ice, like we agreed last time. Do you remember at the end of our podcast?
No.
Oh, for God's sake, Irene, no one remembers this. So remember last time when we were closing up our podcast, and we ended by sort of jokingly saying we should do an ultimate speaking writing marathon, and then it got kind of carried away. But don't worry, we'll I sent you the link. Okay, we'll come back to it later. Anyway, another thing that I saw that you launched recently, which looks pretty cool, was it's like an IELTS teaching course, if I understood correctly. So it's like for teachers who want to get ready for starting, like for preparing students.
Aspiring IELTS teachers, yeah.
Sure. Is that like a recent thing, or because I haven't seen that before on your page?
I've already done that. I did that about a year ago, but it was on site in an office. But then now I'm doing it online.
Okay, so it's kind of like the old project, but rehashed for online purposes. Okay, yeah. And how does that's designed for teachers who are already established teachers, but who want to, sort of widen their repertoire of teachable subjects. Okay.
Exactly, and understand what it means, because there's sometimes when you look at the assessment criteria, which I think is true for all exams, and you read these criteria and you just don't understand what they mean, like. I don't know, something, the argument is fully supported. What is that? What does fully mean? Or the target treaty is fully informed. What's the difference between informed and fully informed? Stuff like that.
Yeah, and then it gets a bit more complicated. I'm not very clued up on the marking criteria for IELTS, but obviously I am for Cambridge because I was a Cambridge examiner. And when it says stuff, so you've got like 10 really marks, because you can have half marks. And then the framework says something like, has full command over complex structures. And then I give them 3. So what, he has like 3 for full command. What does that even mean? Is it half or is it full? So sometimes you have to really get to grips with the framework and understand when Cambridge says full command, or when Cambridge says, negotiating towards an outcome, exactly what do they mean? Because it's their own little system. All right, then. When did you? So, because I get kind of self-conscious about this sometimes, that I feel that I have a certain level of authority from which I can teach the sort of students that I teach, and then eventually, after getting enough experience, I sort of felt that I had enough command and enough knowledge to be able to teach other teachers. When did you get that feeling that you're not only teaching candidates, you're now teaching teachers?
I don't know if I actually have it. I'm just being maybe over my head, but I don't know. I have a lot of colleagues who know that I know IELTS. I've taken it. I understand it. So maybe it started little by little and then snowballed into courses that I launched. Just they ask me something and then I think, well, maybe there's something I can teach them. There's something I know that they need.
I suppose it's nice if you can start off with like just simply like a support group. It doesn't mean that you have to be like, top teacher or top master teacher. You can just be lending your support in a collegial kind of round table way. And then, yeah, as you say, it can snowball into something after that. So, do you ever get candidates as well who sign up for that course, or is it just 100% teachers?
Oh, no, this one is teachers only.
What if a candidate asked you if they can join as well, just so they can get, if they've got money to spend and they can spend it? Would you let them in?
I would. It would give them a better understanding of the test.
Yes, yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, sometimes it's nice to I like to every now and again do a lesson where I like put the students in the teacher's position. So I say, okay, if you were the teacher, how would you teach this? You ever do that?
No, but I put them in the examiners, in the assessor's position. Like, what do you think is the score here and why? And what is the score on each scale, on each criterion?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And there are certain things, if you really put yourself in the examiner's position, that you wouldn't even think about. But like, so the first, when you get qualified as a Cambridge examiner, the first like hour of what you do, I mean, maybe it's different for different assessors or different exam centers, but the first hour of what we were doing was literally learning how to hold the book correctly, because it sounds so silly, but it's not. It's really, really difficult to command the resources correctly. And I know this sounds pathetic and I'm complaining about paperwork, but honestly, like there's so, because it's not laid out logically. There's like part two, and then there's all the part twos in like all of the pictures in one big clump, and so you have to decide in advance which pictures you're going to give and what pages they're on. You have to bookmark them correctly, because if you're, as the examiner, if you're just constantly faffing around with all of your paperwork, the candidate's going to get really nervous. So you have to make sure that you are slick and professional, and that's like the first hour of what you learn. And then obviously you learn like the scales, and you learn how to assess people correctly and do the paperwork and all of that stuff. But yeah, it's people don't think about that. And also they teach you about how to keep the candidates as calm as possible, because for them this is super nerve-wracking. I know what it's like. I've done speaking exams before, not in English, in other languages, but I know what it's like. And a lot of examiners don't, especially if they're sort of native speakers, because a lot of the time native speakers don't bother learning other languages for some reason. But for example, I heard a story about a guy once who, so obviously, the examiner has their little clock, their stopwatch. He accidentally started it 1 minute too early. And so as a note to himself, to remind himself, on his paper, he just wrote -1. And the candidate saw it and thought, -1, what the hell did I do? Oh my God, did I make a mistake? And then the whole time the candidate was thinking what mistake he made and failed the exam. To be fair to the examiner, okay, yeah, maybe don't write -1 so the candidate can see, but also candidates, calm down. It's not the end of the world. Even if you make a mistake, you just got to breeze through it. You got to ride that wave and make sure that you, show off as much as you can.
The next part, soldier on, and
Precisely.
don't give up.
Precisely. Give up. If I had one main tip from the examiner's position, one main tip for speaking candidates, and this I think goes to IELTS as much as main suite Cambridge exams, don't paint yourself into a corner. So that's a nice phrase we have in English, by the way, is to paint yourself. I'm sure people know it, but paint yourself into a corner. If you imagine you're painting a floor, and you paint and paint and paint, and then you realize you're standing in a corner and you can't get to the door because you've painted, you've got all that paint around you. It's possible to do the same thing as a speaking candidate. When you start speaking and you keep snowballing and snowballing, this big snowball of complete nonsense that doesn't mean anything, don't be afraid to stop yourself, to change your mind, to say, oh no, actually I was thinking about something else, and then just launch into a different, there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell people, I also teach them this phrase, to lose your train of thought. I just tell them, well, say something like, I'm sorry, I seem to have lost my train of thought. Let me start over.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That's definitely it. The second biggest tip I would give for, this is the picture round now, so this is especially about CPE, because you can kind of get away with this for FC and CAE, but for CPE, no way. A lot of the time, there'll be, so if it's CAE, for example, the question will always be like, here are some pictures of people doing some sort of stuff. Talk about how the people might be feeling and why they're doing this stuff, something like that. And people will simply describe the pictures.
Oh yeah.
Of course, as you know, that's a really common trap to fall into, and no wonder, because you've got the pictures in front of you, so why wouldn't you describe them? You can sometimes get away with that on FCE and CAE, depending on how specific the question is. But with CPE, forget it, because there's always so many different layers. You know how CPE works. It's always something like, now here are the pictures, describe them, and now imagine that we're making some sort of magazine article about this stuff, which is hardly related to the pictures. Decide which picture is going to be the best to get the most reader attention. There's just so many different levels of analysis and layers that if you simply try and describe the picture, sorry, there's no way you're passing. It happens all the time.
Yeah, and I tell people all the time, like, I'm looking at the picture, you are looking at the picture, we're both looking at the same picture. Why are you describing to me? I see what is happening in the picture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to know another? I can say this now because I don't examine for Cambridge anymore, so I don't really give a shit. Another secret Cambridge doesn't want you to know. Yeah. This is more for the ladies. Show up, make yourself up, makeup on, nice dress. Honestly, it will help. No one will tell you that. It will help. It's the same as any interaction in life. If you approach someone with a nice smile, and again, this is not a sexual thing. I'm not trying to be impolite here with the guys as well. A nice haircut, shaved, a nice shirt. If you're looking respectable, because honestly, because I used to examine in Nizhny Vartovsk, right? Some of the people you get there, not the upper echelons of society, and you try, when you're the assessor, you try not to let that affect you. If someone's being, especially like teenage kids, I have teenage kids who are doing FCE and they're just laughing through the exam and they're trying to make jokes, they're answering the questions in kind of like a rebellious way, like tell me about what you do in your free time in part one, and then, oh yeah, I like to smoke my electronic cigarette behind the school, and stuff like that. And there's nothing in the framework which says they can't say that. There's nothing in the framework which says they can't talk about rude stuff. There's nothing in the framework that says they can't swear, depending on how you interpret the framework. There's nothing in the framework that says they can't talk about, smoking cigarettes, even if they're teenagers. But try it and see what happens. You will lose marks. Somehow the examiner is just going to get it in their head that they don't like this candidate. Examiner bias has a massive influence on your mark. Trust me.
Well, I'm not surprised. Come on, we are not robots. You cannot get complete objectivity in that, in terms of human communication. Yeah, I also tell people, smile when you enter the room. Smile.
Absolutely.
Say thank you. Just don't be, because a lot of people in Russia, maybe it's just the way we are. We are sometimes like robots. We don't smile, we don't move, we just sit like that, and it doesn't make a good impression. It doesn't invite the other person to interact.
Yeah, all true, all very true. Just treat it like any other interaction in your life. Smile, be polite. Don't say annoying and rude stuff, because some people do. And again, formally, there's nothing in the framework that says you should mark them down. But if the examiner gets it in their head that they don't like this candidate, which can happen, it happens, then, if they're deciding between, is it 3, is it 3.5, he's probably going to choose 3.
Yeah.
So again, that's a dirty secret that Cambridge doesn't want you to know, but hey, I don't really care.
It's a
So
very
there
good
we go.
secret. Yeah, I think our listeners will benefit from that. Yeah.
Oh, for sure, for sure. But I mean, again, I think it's fairly self-explanatory. And if you are, as I'm sure all of your students and your clients are, if you're just a regular, polite, intelligent, just normal member of society, you don't need to be told that. Maybe
Yeah.
some of the teenage kids do. These rebellious kids coming in and ruining my FCE exam. But yeah, it's I think it's good advice for anything you do in life, not only Cambridge exams, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, do you talking about all of this sort of like you go for your 6 kilometer run on New Year's Day and stuff like that. Are you quite like a fan of Zoj and all of this stuff? Are you quite you a healthy person?
I think I'm a healthy person, but I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm obsessed. I'm just trying to be reasonably healthy, reasonably active,
Mm-hmm.
to just to a reasonable degree.
How important do you think that is for effective self-care and for for a mentally healthy life, but also for learning English?
I think it is important in terms of it gives you energy. It gives you're generally more active in life. You don't like lazing around, which means it'll give you energy to write something, to read something, to highlight some vocabulary. So you won't have this attitude like, oh my God, homework. I hate it. I don't want to do it. I want to lie on my couch.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When people say that, like, I don't want to do my homework. Like, obviously, if you're a school teacher and you're teaching kids, I think, yeah, part of your job is to make sure that they do it. If you're teaching adults and someone says, this is boring, someone says, I'm not saying that that's a common occurrence in your class, but I'm sure sometimes you might feel that some of your lessons are more exciting than others. I mean, how could they not be? To what extent do you think it's your responsibility as a teacher of adults to make sure that they are interested and engaged and make sure they do their homework? Is it the same as kids?
I think to a large extent. I think to a large extent because I have this flexibility, I can change the material that we cover. So yeah, I think it is my responsibility. At the same time, it's the student's responsibility to communicate their goals, their interests, because sometimes students want to do something, they expect something interesting, something entertaining, but they never let you in their world. So you have no idea what's going to be entertaining for them. It's just guesswork. Give them an article after an article, and you're just guessing. So, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
general English especially.
Yeah, I don't. Because yeah, I see what you're saying. Of course, as teachers, we do have a certain responsibility. It's as I keep saying, it's a value-added service. We have a certain responsibility to make our classes interesting and engaging, but sometimes you've got to do stuff which isn't interesting, which isn't engaging. Sometimes you need to study this grammar structure, which
Yeah.
is not fun. Sometimes you need to learn a list of a massive list of words. Sorry, and there's just no way of doing it apart from boring rote learning. Maybe not so much at the higher levels, but sort of pre-intermediate, intermediate. That's certainly true. I think if you're teaching a bunch of adults who have already paid money to be in your class, then I think a lot of the responsibility is also on their shoulders.
Oh yeah.
Not all of it,
Oh, yeah.
but because we've all had those students, especially when you teach face to face. I guess most of what you do is online these days, especially in COVID. Yeah, but we all have those. We've all had those students who every lesson they show up to class, they forget their book, they've only got one pencil, sometimes not even that. And I'm just like, come on, wake up. It's so frustrating. Like, get your bloody life organized. It's not that difficult.
Yeah.
Get a folder, get some paper, get some pens,
Exactly.
get some dedicated stationery, and get a book, and let's do this. Like, sometimes you just want to shake these people. Like, come on, organize your life. But yeah, having said that, of course, it is I think the bottom line is always with us as the teacher. If your class doesn't go well or people are not interested, it's really easy to blame the students, but you've got to take responsibility for it yourself as the teacher, I think.
Yeah, I think it's very important to understand what's going on. Is it that the students that you are really giving that you're giving materials that you find entertaining, but not the students? Maybe your interests are completely different. It's just important to understand your share of responsibility and their share of responsibility. Sometimes they don't do their share, and sometimes they own up to it, but sometimes they don't.
Yeah. I think as well, when it comes to teenagers, it's really easy. Because can you remember what you were like as a teenager? I remember what I was like as a teenager.
Oh, no, I was very obedient.
Oh, well, I wasn't. And that's fine. That's part of what being a teenager is. But when you prepare a lesson, you spend ages preparing a lesson, and you really put a lot of love into it. You put so much effort into it, and you cut up the little cards by yourself, and you're spending hours by the guillotine, making interesting original material. And I can't for the life of me remember now what this lesson was about, but I remembered that I had prepared for it for a long time. I thought, oh my God, these kids they're gonna be so engaged, and they're gonna absolutely love it, and they're gonna think, oh my God, this is, we're so lucky that we get to study English in such an interesting way. No, that I went into class, it was chaos. No one paid attention. They just didn't care. They just did not care. One guy was playing computer games behind his book. And granted, this was when I was a very inexperienced teacher, and if it were these days, I think I would have had a lot more control over the class. But that was the first time when I realized that teenagers especially do not care how much work you put into your class.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a wake-up call. And yeah, after that, that was when I learned a lesson as a teacher, and it was a big step forward for me when I stopped trying to be their friend. Because I was, at that time when I started teaching, I was very, very young. I was about 22. And a lot of these kids had older brothers the same age as me. And they thought, oh, this is just, fun Mike who I can joke around with and, make jokes about smoking cigarettes and stuff behind the school. But you can't afford to do that. You've got to assert dominance, not in a weird way, but from the first lesson.
Yeah. It was a bit easier for me because when I started teaching my career, and it was a public school, a state school, so they had to obey me. I had some power, some.
Absolutely. Yeah. What's your patronymic?
Georgievna.
Oh, very nice. Irina Georgievna. Yes.
It's a mouthful to say to people who are not very good at Russian.
Yeah, it is a little bit. But yeah, there we go. Or Miss Lutsenko, I suppose they would call you in an English school.
Well, I don't know. I don't like that. In Russia, calling someone their last name is.
Yeah, I've had students ask me before, like little kids, what my patronymic was, because they felt a bit strange calling me just Mike. Yeah, and so I had to explain to them we don't have patronymics, and I said I've got a second name, which is James. And then they actually, another similar story was when I was getting married. So I got married in Russia, in the Tyumen Zaks, and the woman asked me beforehand. So we've got, this is Daria Vladimirovna, and what's your name and patronymic? And I said to her, I don't have a patronymic. And she said, well, should I just call you by your name then? And I said, yes. And she said, okay, your name is Michael, yeah? And what's this James? I said, well, that's like второе имя, I said. And she said, okay. And so she understood from that she needs to call me Michael James. So she kept saying Daria without Vladimirovna and just Michael James. So it's really very strange ceremony on all counts. But hey, there we go. That's the fun thing about getting married in the Tyumen Zaks.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you end up in Tyumen? Not the most obvious choice of a city to go to.
Well, yeah, I saw a job there, and that was that. Yeah, so I've discussed this with a couple of people on the podcast, and people always, why Siberia? Yeah, just there was a job there, and it was as simple as that. Because I specifically didn't want to go back to Moscow and Petersburg, that kind of area. I wanted, not because I disliked it, but simply because I wanted to find out some other interesting places in Russia. So there was either the south of Russia or Siberia, and I mean those are two like hubs of ESL community in Russia. So there's like the Moscow Petersburg school. We were talking about this with Volva the other day. Then there's the southern school, like this sort of like Volgograd kind of area, Rostov area, and then there's the Siberian school. So it's like Tyumen, Novosibirsk, all of those sorts of guys.
Wow.
So yeah, the Siberian school it was for me in every sense of the word school.
Well, yeah, I've never been to Tyumen myself.
Well, you should definitely.
Maybe.
I'm really looking forward to the next time that I get to visit Russia, which for Corona and financial reasons, God knows when it's going to be, because it's a very expensive trip. I'd have to pay for about 450 pounds for a return ticket from London to Tyumen, which is a lot, and for two people as well, because it would be me and Dasha. And then I've got to get a visa, which is like, I don't know, what's that, $100. And I've got to go to London to apply for it, so that's even more. And then I could probably find somewhere to stay for free, but even so, then there's travel expenses, and so it's an expensive thing to do. But I'd love to meet. I'd love to spend like a couple of days in Moscow and St. Pete's, obviously Tyumen for the most of the time, and we can meet. Let's do like we'll do a campfire meetup.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I'm now so excited. I've met so many great people online. I would love to see them, in the real physical world.
Well, listen to this. If that's exciting for you, listen to this. I've got plans. Irina. I want to start like some sort of, I don't know, like like a conference or something like that. Because there's lots of untapped potential in the ESL market, and I know that Vov was telling me the other day there are some like ladies in Rostov who do some kind of conference, and I think in Novosibirsk there's like this Magellan bookshop or like educational resource company. They do some kind of events, I think, but there's nothing like super serious. Like I'd love to do like a meetup in like, for example, Moscow, in Tyumen, in St. Pete's, wherever really, and like invite all sorts of like well-known types from the ESL world, like I have on my podcast, but in real life. It would be like a CampCon, like a convention, and invite people who are interested, subscribers, teachers, people who watch your content, people who listen to my podcast, and just have a party.
Let's do that. I'm in. Count me in.
All right. Don't worry. I've already counted you in. In fact, you're the star guest on the first day.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Me.
No,
What if Vladimir is watching this podcast?
Oh yeah, he will be. He's always lurking in the background somewhere. He hasn't stolen my books yet. Did you see that one time? He threatened to steal my books.
I know. He is. Yeah.
He's a dangerous Bulgarian criminal, is what he is.
It's a good thing you live in another country.
Yeah, I know, right? Although I'm sure that's no obstacle to him. He could certainly jump over international borders. Although not at the moment. Did you see the UK has closed all air travel?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, times will change, and we will come visit you in the UK.
Yeah, do it, definitely. I'd be happy to show you guys around. Like, come down to the southwest. It's the only place you need to see. You can go to London if you want. If you like having acid thrown in your face, then go to London by all means. But the southwest is where it's at. Come and visit me in Bath, in the countryside. Although I have quite a small cottage, so I can only like have maybe 2 guests at once. But yeah.
Oh, that's fine. I can visit you for a dinner party.
For sure. Or you can sleep in my garden shed if you need a place to stay. Fred sleeps downstairs.
Opt out of that.
Yeah, fair enough. When I introduced you, and I used the MF word, just to clarify, motherfucker is the word I'm talking about. That was partly planned because I wanted to shock you, and also I wanted to ask you about your attitude to swearing in general. So first of all, what do you think about swearing, this non-standard lexicon, as the Russians like to call it? and especially in the classroom or in writing assignments?
Generally, well, but due to the nature of the classes that I teach, exams, it's dyslexia is absolutely useless in exams. And generally, I don't do that. No, but in some of my creative writing pieces, they might write something like, I don't know, CR, then asterisk, and then P, something like that.
Crap is the word you're referring to.
Yeah.
Okay,
I can't
just to
even
clarify.
say it out loud. Yeah.
Why not? Why not?
I don't, because there is no context for that. I'm not, nothing.
Sure there is. We're talking about swear. Okay, okay, here we go. What's your favorite English swear word? Here's the context.
No, that's not context. Something bad has to happen. Something has to, I don't know, to fall on my toe. That would be context. You have very thick dictionaries behind on your bookshelf. So if they fall on my toe, you will.
Well, not all of those are dictionaries. That's a Russian English dictionary. That's an etymological dictionary. And that's the complete works of Shakespeare.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Very serious books.
I know, right? And this is my mini dictionary. If ever you want to learn just a little bit of Russian, you can learn. It's just a teeny tiny Russian dictionary. Yeah, I had this when I was at school, and I was just sort of learning Russian as a hobby. And then I went to university, and this was the big boy is what you need for university level stuff.
What else do you have there that Vladimir wants to steal? I trust his judgment.
He wanted to steal some of my. This is my like Charles Dickens collection up here. So this is some very old editions of Dickens. These things here, they are some Russian literature translations. So I've got some. There's the Cossacks by Tolstoy. There's Taras Bulba, and all sorts of stuff. And then here, just all sorts of stuff, all sorts of nonsense, really. And then this is my Russian corner up here. So I've got a picture of Fred, which is he's my Russian dog, and some Russian dolls, and I've got my Communist Party memorabilia. There we go. There's Uncle Vova there.
Is this what Vladimir wants to steal?
No, I don't think you can even steal communist stuff, because it's all everything belongs to everyone, right? Under communism.
Used to, yeah.
Yeah,
Not
thank God.
anymore.
Thank God. I want to hold your feet to the fire with the swearing stuff. Why is it that you think that, for example, during a podcast like this, so this is not like an exam, it's not a formal setting, why do you consider swearing to be unacceptable during a podcast like this, for example?
Well, it's generally not the environment I grew up in. It's just not the done thing in my environment.
That is not the way in Pskov.
No, Pskov is not that kind of city. I've been living in St. Petersburg for 10 years. I've absorbed all the culture that we have here, so I'm almost local.
As if people in Petersburg don't swear. Come on, Irina. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. I bet you swear. I bet you do. Wait, in private, right?
We'll have to find out when the thick dictionary falls on my toe.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Like, what would you say in those situations if you didn't have swear words to fall back? Like a car runs over your foot. What do you say? Oh, that's inconvenient. Or yeah, that's
an unfortunate yes occurrence.
Dear sir, I am very vexed by the fact that you have run over my foot. Yes, please don't do it again. Do you at least agree then that okay, so obviously you're not the sort of person who would use swear words with abandon in a conversation, even when pressed to do so. I respect that. However, do you agree with those people who say that people who often use swear words only do so because they don't have a rich enough vocabulary? Do you agree with that?
Generally, well, it depends. Obviously, we would have to look at specific examples, but a lot of the times that's true. In Russian, especially, they can make verbs, nouns, adjectives out of these swear words, out of the root, of the main root. So, yeah.
Yeah, as you can in English, as I'm sure you know.
Can you though?
Yeah, of course.
there are limited opportunities.
I don't know. I would argue not as limited as some other languages. For example, so to make a verb in English is extremely easy. In fact,
Yeah, it's already any word is already a verb.
exactly. Which when swearing comes into the question is a very useful feature of the language to have. And Russian is also flexible in this regard. I would argue when it comes to verbs, especially, not quite as, because obviously in Russian verbs conjugate in a specific way. There's a specific infinitive ending that you need. And then when we talk about prefixes and suffixes, then it gets even more complicated. So definitely Russian does have this flexibility, but do you think it's as flexible as English?
Well, I think it's less flexible, but there is more variety because of all these endings. In English, what can you do with a word, with a verb? Just a couple of endings, that's it.
Sure. No, I see what you're saying, and it's not only endings; it's also prefixes, isn't it? So okay, let's take a fairly unoffensive root. It's hardly even a swear word. It's not a super polite word, but let's take this root figa, or like nafiga, for example. So we've got like nafiga, pofig, nafig, all of those things. Like that's all to do with prefixes, right? But then you could certainly say all of those things in English. So if you want to select, nafiga, you can say like, why the, and then insert root here. Why the hell, let's say. So that's fairly unoffensive. And then pofig, like I don't give a damn, I don't give a shit, whatever it is. And so on and so forth. So yeah, definitely there's but sometimes the reason that I don't like it when people say like, oh, you're only swearing because you don't have a sufficient vocabulary. Like sometimes that's definitely true, as you correctly say. Some people, they just put that word in there because they can't think of any, they don't say that, throw me that,
the
carburettor.
thing,
They'll say, throw me that fignu over there. But having said that, sometimes if you are a real master of the language, you really know what you're doing with it. Some of the creative things that you can do with swear words are unbelievable. Are really, really high uses of language. And I use the word high unambiguously. So as an example, people who don't like swearing in Russian, cover your ears now. An example that this is from Anton Yozhikov, who's been on the podcast a couple of times. He's a person who isn't afraid of swearing in English or in Russian, and I would say has a very sophisticated way of, so this, when he wants to say, like, when in Russian you want to say like somewhere really, really far away, like, some like Mukhosransk какой-то, like really distant little village, he says it like this: "За 3-9 дней." I'm sorry, but that is very sophisticated, very poetic use. Don't you agree?
I completely agree, but very, very few people say that, and they're capable of saying stuff like that. That's a different thing than just swearing in everyday life.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, that's true. Because the thing with swear words is that although I don't agree that you should censor them unnecessarily, at the same time, I agree with what you're saying, that you shouldn't overuse them, because if you just throw them in, every other word is a swear word, then the value of those words decreases and it depreciates over time. And that's not good, because you want to reserve these words for what they really mean.
To emphasize a certain reaction.
Precisely. And actually, you asked me about my books. I think it's this one. If it's not, so this Steve, Steven Pinker.
Yeah.
One of my linguistic heroes. Now I'm not sure if it's the Stuff of Thought. I think I'll reread it and I'll confirm when the podcast comes out. But he talks about swearing in his book. And he has all these different categories of swearing. So there's like sort of there's I can't remember the name of the category in linguistics. I'll have to look it up. But there's like this type of swearing, which is to get across the emotion of the situation. So obviously, if I'm in the doctor's room, if I'm in the doctor's office, and I want to talk about things which are generally uncomfortable to talk about in polite company, for example, human waste, sexual organs, that kind of stuff, then I'm going to use the correct scientific terms. I'm going to say fecal matter. I'm going to say effluent. I'm going to say diarrhea. All of those, like, lovely scientific words. But if I open my door, and some kids have done that, that childhood prank where they light a bag of dog poo on fire, I'm going to say, and I stamp down on it with my foot, I'm not going to say my shoe was covered with dog excreta. I'm going to say I stepped in a flaming bag of shit, because I want to get across the emotional reaction that I have to that situation. There's also a type of, again, I can't remember the correct terminology, but it's like social swearing. So when you're in like men do this especially a lot. When you're in like a group of guys and you're all hanging out, having a good time, then we can use swear words to show that we understand that, look, we're all cool guys here. We're all hanging out, relax. So yeah.
Yeah. Could you say it could be a social lubricant?
You could. And we use the word lubricant quite unambiguously. Yeah. But then the flip side to that is, during a Cambridge exam, for example, I'm not going to be using swear words, because although if you really look at it, if you really analyze the situation, although we both understand there's nothing that's going to hurt you if you hear a swear word, there's nothing that's really, how can a word be offensive? It's the same idea. Whether you say shit or you say excreta, it's the same thing you're describing. But again, let's not forget that language is it's a social, what's the word I'm looking for? A social process as much as a communicative process. You are showing that you understand the nature, the social dynamic of the situation by not using certain language.
Yeah. Awareness of style and
Precisely.
collocation.
Yeah. So I proved your point for you. So yeah, you're right and I'm wrong. We shouldn't use swear words in a podcast, but it's my fucking podcast. I'll say what I want.
Exactly. That's the benefit of running your own podcast.
Yeah. I can say whatever. Yeah, for sure. Faux show, as Snoop Dogg says. All right. Anything else you'd like to let our listeners and viewers know before we wrap it up?
I don't know. Well, let's just circle back to the idea of writing and creative writing. So just people write, tap into your creativity, discover your creative resources. You have them. I guarantee. I know. Yeah. Stay cool. Study English.
Stay cool. Study English. Brilliant. Amazing. All right. If anyone is not currently subscribed to Irina's page, don't think, just do. Just go to her page and subscribe immediately. Don't even read what's on there. Actually do, but only after subscribing.
And to Mike's page. The same is true for Mike's page, yeah?
Yeah, you can or you can't. It's up to you. If no one listens to my podcast, I'm just going to keep recording them. I'm just going to speak to myself. But hey, it's doing okay. I've got some listeners, so I'm very thankful for that. Yeah, like, subscribe, do all of that stuff. Or don't. Live your own life.
Please do.
Do it. Just do it.
Just do
it.
Okay.
All right. Thanks very much for coming on the show, Ira. And yeah, good luck with it all. I'll see you soon.
Thank you for having me. See you around.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.